this was the last slide from the last presentation. So we're just going to finish up this topic of confined space. All right. Now, mind you, I used to work with someone who was sort of like a citizen on duty confined space rescue team. What it is that there's always some sort of emergency plan going on with confined space, pretty much, well, when it comes to Ontario or Canada, or maybe as well states, that you can sign up, get trained if you pass the requirements. You can sign up, get trained, and be on call whenever the hopefully it's not going to happen, but if there's going to be a need for some sort of rescue within confined space, then you could be part of the rescue team. Yeah. Where would you find out how to qualify and where to go? I don't know, but because that was years ago that was speaking to that person. But if you really want to find out, what comes to my mind is I would contact maybe the fire department. Right? They would know. But please don't call 911 and ask for that, okay? So that would be not very smart. Right? So there you go. Okay, so we were talking about the hazards and risks, or pretty much hazards. So here is the lighting. Will be configuration and lighting part of the confined space. Well, what does it say here? Adequate illumination should be provided where lighting is limited within confined space. Okay. In some cases, explosion-proof lighting might be necessary. And what's explosion-proof lighting is, I'm not sure if I explained that thing during the last couple minutes of the last presentation, but let me say it again. Explosion-proof lighting would be a lighting that involves all the switching system that will be enclosed in some sort of a way, so the spark that is being produced by the switch, for example, switching the light on and off, there's always going to be a little tiny bit of a spark. So that spark is separated from the ambience of the environment. So if there's a gas leak or anything within the environment, that spark would not trigger an explosion. Right? And there are various ways of doing that. Quite often is because those switches you get by especially switches specially made for that, and they would be, for example, the contacts would be submerged in some sort of oil, right? So the spark doesn't happen. And all kinds of enclosures and stuff. Years ago, I was bidding on contract to install a security alarm in one of the oil changing places, right? And there was requirement for some sensors upstairs and downstairs of the facility, but there was the contract was specified for explosion proof everything, right? And it was oil changing places because there could be some fumes and whatnot. So excuse me. That's as far as explosion proof. So that goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyways. um, well, if you suspect that there's a gas leak in your house, and if there's a strong smell and all the sensors are going, well, the thing would be to, well, get out, right? Or, well, you will, but for sure, don't turn the lights on and off in the house whenever you suspect that there's a gas leak. All right. I view. Full screen. It doesn't want to go into full screen. Are you kidding me? Full screen mode. Wow. All right. Some confined spaces can contain mixing or crushing mechanisms. So this would be a configuration type of a reasoning for it to be classified as a confined space. So let's just say some confined spaces can contain mixing or crushing mechanisms or other hazards that can be turned on and injure a worker. Use lockout, tag out on all hazardous items. And how to do the lockout and tags, you will be trained if you get the job doing this kind of stuff. Now, let's take a look at the duties of the attendants. Remember, there's got to be attendant for every confined space entry. There is a person who does the work, and there is at least one attendant. And let's take a look at the duties of the attendants here. The attendant knows the hazards. Right? Hazards are things that can happen. Maintains an accurate count of entrants. Well, whoever comes in must come out. So that makes sense. Remains outside the permit space until relieved by another attendant. So the attendant pretty much doesn't go in to the confined space, because if there is something that can cause people to pass out or well, otherwise faint or be overwhelmed by whatever, and then if the attendant goes in, then there's no one to call for help. Okay, so attendant remains outside the permit space until relieved by another attendant. Maintains regular communication with entrants. Remember that reality show, Gold Rush, something like that. When people diving for gold, there's always an attendant. That would be confined space, right? Under the ocean, and there will always be attendant on top of the water surface. Attendant well, monitors conditions inside and outside of the permit space. So here is the duty of the attendant. All right. Continuing. Attendant summons rescue services when needed. Makes sense. And attendant ensures that no authorized personnel do not enter permit space or affected operations. It's one of those Monty Python thing. No one shall pass or none shall pass. Performs non-duty rescues. Here's the key. Sorry, not duty. Performs no entry rescues. For the reason is that if the person enters that and whatever is there inside that overwhelms people and puts people down, then there's no hope for everybody else to get out. Same as if you're flying a plane and they always instruct you whenever there's some conditions that you can't breathe, the masks come down, put the mask onto yourself first and then help others. Because if you put the mask on your face first, then you can still breathe and you're able to help others. But if things are happening quickly, if you try to help others, somebody else who is sitting beside you, and you won't be able to get it on time, and you are going to get overwhelmed by the conditions, then both of you are done, right? Done, or so to speak. Right? And attendant, excuse me, performs no other duties that might interfere with primary duty to monitor and protect the entrance. You're not going to do any of that. Not going to talk to your friend or do some puzzles or whatnot. You're just as busy as the person inside. All right. If possible for a is it possible for a worker to be overcome by a sudden change in atmospheric conditions? Ensure that a rescue procedure is in place in case an entrant needs to be removed from a confined space. So this would be other non-entry rescuing. That's why the attendant should be attentive at a second's notice. Some of our forces, actually, no, I'm not going to say that. All right. That's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, guys. Additional concerns when it happens, when we're talking about confined space. Noise amplified due to acoustics of the space. Well, if there's large kind of a steel tank, the noises can be amplified. So use hearing protection. Damages, okay, amplified due, the noise is amplified due to acoustics of the space, it damages the hearing, your hearing, and affects communication, all right? Okay, I made it through reading that sentence. When it comes to, I'm just going to mention that when it comes to the noise reduction in your ears, quite often, just using those foam earplugs, sometimes it might not be enough. I forgot what it's called, but behind your ear, there's that bone. There you can touch that bone. And when it comes to some low frequencies, loud volume of lower frequencies, that little foam thing is not going to protect you. You're still going to get your hearing compromised or damaged if you don't wear the full earmuffs. Right? Slippery and or wet surfaces. Well, these would be concerns. Personal protective equipment. More common PPE such as hard toe boots. Notice it doesn't say steel-toed boots. Safety glasses, face shield, gloves, and overalls must be worn when needed. Right, well, I don't think I need to elaborate on that one. And it can be hot in confined space. I'm just trying to think what possibly you might be for the electrical pre-apprentice that you guys are here could encounter as far as, okay, if you are installing a wiring, and especially in the residential, but quite often in the commercial situations as well, and you have to pull the wire through the ceiling space. In the summer, it gets oven like hot and you can't breathe because there is no oxygen content there because of the heat. Maybe there's a little bit, but do not crawl into the ceiling space in the summer where we are here in southwestern Ontario, especially. If you do, you will have to be pulled out of there. And I have known cases that somebody would say, oh, I'm just going to tough it out and I'm going to do what I have to do and get out. No, it will not have enough life force in you to overcome the heat that is generated between the ceiling space and the true roof space in the summer. It is hot there, and you can't just tough it out. You will pass out before you know it. And if there's no one to pull you out, you will stay there. Okay? So that's as far as here you go, hot work. That's an example I can think of. Well, it's doing the electrical installations. Applicable standards, Ontario Regulation 63205, confined spaces, requirements before any worker and requirements before any worker enters the confined space or begins related work with respect to confined space. The lead employer, or in case of a project, the constructor shall prepare a coordination document to ensure that the duties imposed on employees by sections performed the way that are protected. So it's not just what I'm saying is um, these are not suggestions to watch out for this, to watch out for that. This is a regulated thing that we have to go by when it comes to anything that classifies as confined space and doing some work in there. So things are official. That's basically what it says. This one says that things should be in writing. This says this should be it's official, and this it should be all in writing and documented. Okay, and what would be part of the documentation here? Assessment before any worker enters confined space. The employer shall the employer, all right, employer shall ensure that an adequate assessment of the hazards related to the confined space has been carried out, and it's official, right? These numbers, there's some numbers there. That means it's official. Okay. Plan before any worker enters a confined space. The employer shall ensure an adequate written plan, including procedures for the control of hazards identified in the assessment, has been developed, implemented by a competent, here's a big word lately, a competent person for the confined space. And here again, you see those numbers? That means it's official. Okay, right. Your employer is responsible for. Your employer is responsible for providing atmospheric testing equipment. If necessary, providing ventilation equipment and/or respiratory protection. And your employer is responsible for providing and training on confined space permits and the written program. No shaving any buck there. Developing and training on emergency action and rescue plans, and your employer is responsible for responding to and correcting hazards pointed out by you, the worker. See a hazard, your responsibility is to report that to your employer, and the employer's responsibility is to listen to what you have to say when it comes to pointing out possible risks or hazards. You are responsible for, once you get the equipment, you are supposed to use it, right? So testing the atmosphere prior to entry and periodically monitoring the atmosphere for possible changes, right? Following permit procedures, ensuring that there is at least one authorized attendant present at all times. So the employer is supposed to give you the equipment that you're supposed to work with, and they're supposed to come up with a plan, more or less, so to speak, and you are responsible for following that plan. Right? And you're also responsible for correcting the hazards you are able to correct. and you're responsible for responding to your reporting to your supervisor the hazards that you are unable to correct. And the responsibility of your employer is listening to you, as I said. All right. Is that the last slide? That's the last slide for today. And always remember, test the atmosphere prior to entry and periodically. Never enter a confined space if the atmospheric conditions are not suitable. Hence that story I told, sort of a story I told you about the ceiling space. Ensure that actually, you know, when entering the ceiling space in the summer, you just poke your head in and your body is not going to listen to your brain. Your body will pull out of there anyways. Ensure the attendant is outside. I tried that. Ensure an attendant is outside of the confined space at all times and follow your company's confined space permit procedures. Right? Okay. So I guess everybody woke up, and I'm just beginning to wake up now. Just kidding. I woke up a long time ago. So please keep working on the assignment. There is a reason why I give that assignment to you. Please listen to the instructions. There are not too many instructions there. There are a few simple instructions, and sometimes already I'm beginning to get work that maybe I could include for the next year students, showing them what not to do. Okay. I am a mean person. No, I'm not. Excuse me. But there are few simple procedures, instructions as far as completing the assignment. Just follow them. And if you don't do it like that, if you don't do it properly, you're going to get your marks deducted pretty quickly. This tells me if you are listening and you're able to grasp the concept of well, it's an electrical circuit, whether it's a three-way switch, whether it's a four-way switch system, whether it's something else. It makes not that much difference as much as it makes that somebody like you takes the time to understand and grasp the concept of it. And if you don't, you're not just going to connect the wires quickly and cross your fingers, hope that maybe by a chance you connected those wires. That would be something extremely, extremely terrible, right? You can lose your job, and you can actually, if you do that, depending on the severity of the situation, you could be criminally responsible for doing that kind of stuff. So understand the concept. This assignment tells me whether you're understanding the concept of the electrical systems and closed circuits and able to analyze the current flow and create the current path, and if you've done something wrong, correcting it or not. And again, look at the last page of the assignment. And the last thing that I have to say there, if somebody presented that to you and asked for money, in other words, if you have hired someone to present that product, which is the drawing that we're doing right now, if somebody gave you that drawing as part of their job and say, okay, you asked me for it, there you go, that would be $200. Would you pay money for it? And you gotta be really honest with yourself. Okay, cool. So next week, this is week 13, and next week we're just going to have the test, which will include some questions from the quiz. The quiz I treat it as like a pre-test, so that gives you a chance to reflect on some things that you were not sure about, and there will be some additional questions about this everything that we did since. So it's going to be confined space, and we're also going to do the arc flash this Friday. Okay, cool. Right, you got an extra couple of minutes, so use them wisely. Make me proud, and I'll see you when I see you. Thanks, guys.